Hello there, people of the internet. Here in the United States, we have a limitation on our barrel lengths for a firearm to be classified as a rifle. The minimum barrel length of your firearm needs to be 16 inches or greater for your rifles here in the US, unless, of course, you want to file extra paperwork, get it registered, turn it into an NFA item, etc., etc. Now, there are the braced pistols. That's a whole other topic. We're gonna go ahead and leave that for another video. But here in the US, minimum requirements for your barrel length is 16 inches. The most popular firearm in the United States is probably going to be your AR-15. I know that there are a lot of people out there who don't like that. A lot of people will go and tell me the 30-30 is the way to go, or insert your choice of whatever firearm it is that you want here. The AR as of 2024 is probably going to be your most popular rifle, and your most popular cartridge in that rifle is of course going to be your 223/556. Nowadays it's probably going to be 556 chamberings, or maybe 223 wild if you're feeling wild. Most of your ARs are 556, most of them are not 223 wild. So the reason why barrel length matters with the 223 cartridge is your 223 cartridge is very dependent on velocity, and as your barrel gets shorter with this particular cartridge, that velocity decreases like very, very, very rapidly. If we have something like Lake City M193 55 grain stuff, this from a full-length barrel, like an M16 length barrel, like what I have right here, a 20-inch barrel, should be going at about 3,200 feet per second. That velocity with this tiny projectile, 55 grains, is not a heavy or large projectile by any stretch of the imagination, but combined with the velocity, suddenly you have yourself a good, effective cartridge. Most of the ARs that are here in the United States have a 16-inch barrel, just because the velocity that you get from that 16-inch barrel is still adequate enough to be able to handle whatever it is you have to handle at distances that most of your things are going to take place at. I know a lot of people like to go into my comments and they tell me, well, I'm out in, I don't know, the open plains of the Midwest where, I might be making shots at 1,000 yards away. Most people can't do that. If you can make good, accurate shots at a long distance, hats off to you. But go down to your local gun range and watch people have pie plate accuracy at 25 yards. The average shooter just cannot shoot very accurately. With your 16-inch barrel, your muzzle velocity with that same 55 grain ammo is going to be about 3,000, maybe 3,050 feet per second, give or take. There's going to be some deviations whenever it comes to your velocities, just with brand of ammunition, gunpowder used, like just even the different variations. Is that the word I'm looking for? The different variations, like between cartridge to cartridge, from the same batch of ammo, can be within 50 feet per second. But we're going to call it about 3,000 to 3,050 feet per second from a 16-inch barrel. At 500 yards, you're still looking at approximately 2,800 feet per second from your 16-inch barrel with a 55 grain bullet. That velocity is absolutely 100% still adequate enough to cause the terminal ballistic effectiveness that a 5.56, I'm trying to use terminology that like everyone can understand. If I start talking gun talk, then a lot of people don't get it, so I'm trying to speak in ways that people who aren't gun guys can also understand. That velocity still causes a permanent wound channel to expand inside of a soft target to the point to where it still does enough damage to put down your target, if that makes sense to you guys. With the velocity of your 5.56, it's normally intended to fragment upon impact if we're talking about lead core stuff, cause permanent wound channels on your targets. It is very velocity dependent, 2,800 feet per second at 500 yards. That's still fast enough to be able to achieve these things that the cartridge is intended to achieve. Your 16-inch rifle barrel is also going to be significantly shorter and significantly easier to lug around and handle than your 20-inch barrel. Now, I'm saying this because that 16-inch legal barrel length, I believe, for your 5.56 cartridge is your ideal barrel length for that cartridge, just because of those distances that most of your people are able to shoot at. If you can shoot at farther ranges, then by all means get yourself a 20-inch if that's what you want. Get yourself a 6.5 Grendel AR if that's what you want. Get yourself a DMR if that's what you want. Whatever it is that you feel that you need to do, you go ahead and you do you. The average person can't hit jack of all anything at 100 yards. Ask me how I know. And 16-inch at 100 yards, that's still absolutely 100% enough velocity to be able to handle whatever it is that you need to handle. That's one of the benefits of the 5.56. With its light recoil, you can send multiple shots downrange, and hopefully one of your shots will hit your target. Definitely increases your odds of one of your shots hitting your target. Fast follow-up shots. But having owned both your full-length M16 rifle barrel, I can tell you right now, you know, here in the jungles of Florida, that gets caught on stuff a hell of a lot more than a 16-inch barrel like what I have right here on my Coyote gun. This right here is dramatically easier to carry around in tight corridors or jungle environments or spaces like vehicles. I have to drive and carry this around whenever I take it to the gun range and move it through stuff whenever I'm bringing like other equipment. Something like this right here is a lot easier than something like that, especially if you're carrying a bunch of stuff. Like if I go out to the gun range and I bring this right here, I'm also bringing water, I'm bringing ammo, I'm bringing gun cases, I'm bringing recording equipment, cameras, I'm bringing a table, I'm bringing an awning for me to, you know, have sunshade, I'm bringing a bunch of different stuff out there, and this makes a difference whenever we're talking about things that go beyond just carrying your gun. Now, the 16-inch barrel, like I said, distances most people will be capable at, you know, that is absolute adequate velocities. Honestly, I think that your bullet type matters more than velocity. If you're concerned about getting adequate damage, is that the word I'm looking for? Adequate damage from your projectile, then maybe you want to look into soft points, because we don't have the hindrances that the military has, and we can choose what sort of projectiles we want. Go with a 55 grain VMAX. Those are fantastic against soft targets. Ask me how I know. And then if we start looking at your other cartridges, like say 7.62 by 39, this is a cartridge that does not lose any real velocity if we dumb it down to a 16-inch barrel. As a matter of fact, the powder is basically done burning behind that cartridge by the time it gets to the end of that 16-inch barrel. It's one of the reasons why AK pistols are so good at maintaining their velocity and effectiveness. It's just a cartridge that lends itself to being good in shorter barrels. With those shorter barrels, you still get your same terminal effectiveness of that cartridge out at the distances that you would normally get with that cartridge. You just have less hindrance whenever it comes to lugging around your rifle. You have less weight. You have less likelihood of catching your rifle onto something. Even if we bump it up to full-powered cartridges, a 16-inch barrel 308 still has absolutely 110% adequate velocity, especially if we start getting into your higher weight cartridges. If you have a 150 grain bullet, that tends to exit the barrel quite rapidly, quite quickly. But if you have your heavier bullets, like say a 180 grain, maybe a 200 grain, maybe even a 220 grain if your twist rate can stabilize that, as you start getting towards those heavier bullets that take longer to exit the barrel, you have less velocity loss. And with a 16-inch barrel, you've basically burned all the gunpowder that is available to burn behind your 308. Of course, you're going to get more velocity with a longer barrel, but that longer barrel, you have diminishing returns once you get past that 16-inch. An argument can be made with 18-inch barrels for your 308, but that extra 2 inches, once you get to that extra 2-inch mark, you're like, well, it's just 2 inches. Well, why not 20-inch to get more velocity? Well, it's just 2 inches. Like, there's just that, and then you have 4 inches, and the next thing you know, you got a 24-inch barrel on whatever rifle it is that you're running. I would say that 16-inch is the best barrel length to get the most bang from your buck without having an overly hindering rifle. A rifle that you can comfortably carry while also carrying whatever else it is that you have to carry. If all you have to worry about is your rifle and you don't have to worry about other supplies, then, who cares? But after being someone who carries around a multitude of things through, jungles here in Florida, or through vehicles, or through, hell, even houses. Whenever I was moving my firearms from my old filming location to this filming location, your shorter rifles, like this right here, these were so much easier to move around than your full-length rifles, like that M16, like what I got there. And then we got the rifles like what I got here. This is a Mosin Nagant 9130, where we got that long boy right there. Bottom line, the shorter the rifle, the easier it is to move things around, the easier it is to maneuver, the easier it is to get in and out of vehicles, the easier it is to carry your things. And with that 16-inch barrel, basically whatever cartridge it is that we're talking about, with the exception of maybe magnums or slow-burning rifle cartridges, or maybe, I don't know, black powder cartridges or firearms that are black powder or things like that, 16-inch will basically still give you the velocity that you're wanting to achieve to get done whatever it is that you're wanting to get done at the distances that most of your things are going to take place at, and most of those distances are well beyond what most people can handle. For the average person, 16-inch is absolutely where it is at. That is my opinion. I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree because they have their opinion based off of their capabilities, what they know. But for the average person who just can't, they can't do long distance stuff. The average person cannot shoot beyond 100 yards, and most of those average people can't shoot beyond 25 yards. For the average person, 16-inch is fine. Thanks for watching, folks. I appreciate your time. Like, subscribe, share. Description below is a link to all sorts of stuff. Go check it out. You guys go off, have yourself a fantastic day. I will see you on the next episode. I need to get myself a muzzle brake for my set-me rifle. I want a flash hider. It has a muzzle brake on it. I want a flash hider because that muzzle brake is stupidly atrocious. Bye, guys.